Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I are excited for the upcoming World Junior Tournament Championship game, which will feature our Team USA. The heart of the outdoor hockey season has finally arrived, and one equipment manager makes his NHL debut as a player. We'll have all the details, plus some college hockey talk, the KHL Minute, and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 1, Episode 21, recorded on Wednesday, January 4th, 2017. Outdoor hockey is the best.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here with Steve. How's it going today, Steve?
Hey, good evening, Wayne. How you doing? Good to be with you.
Back for another week of hockey action.
Another week. We just got done watching that unbelievably stunning semifinal World Juniors Championship game.
Oh, yeah. What a game that was, huh?
Incredible game. Incredible game.
Yeah, as Steve said, we're recording pretty much right after the end of that game, and it was an amazing game. It was a shootout win for the U.S., so they move on to the gold medal game, and a little bit later tonight, the other semifinal game between Sweden and Canada takes place, but we'll get into that. And there's been some other news this week, too, or actually today, for that matter. Today is Wednesday, the 4th of January. And just before I headed home from work this afternoon, I got word that Milt Schmidt, a legend in Boston, with the former player of the Boston Bruins, passed away today at the age of 98. He was the oldest living player or former NHL player in the league. And in fact, he was just named over the weekend there at the Winter Classic as one of the 100 greatest NHL players of all time. So, yeah. And he was obviously too sick to attend the game because they were trying to get everybody who is able to go to this. But he was unable to go, and obviously we found out today why he couldn't make it. He ended up passing away today. But he spent more than 80 years in some form of fashion in the sport as either a player, coach. He was GM of the Bruins for a while. He was GM of the Capitals when they came into the league way back when. But most of his more recent years, he spent a lot of time around the Boston Bruins, and he was very, very much a beloved figure in Boston. Sad to see him pass today, but he lived a long life, a great life, and sad to see him go.
Yeah.
So.
I know. I remember earlier this year he dropped out the puck with Bobby Orr, right? I remember hearing about that.
That was back in October. Yep.
You told me then he wasn't looking too good. So.
Yep. Yeah. He was very frail then. He was in a wheelchair, but yeah, he did drop the puck with Bobby Orr. It was a game back in October against the Devils, and he was wearing his number 15 jersey. His number 15 sits in the rafters at the Boston Garden. It's one of the many retired numbers that the Bruins have, and but he will be missed. But let's go ahead and move on with the show. I'd like to remind everybody again that you can visit our website at thehockeynuts.com. You can email the show if you want to give us some feedback, or if you want to participate in the show. We certainly are welcome to that. You can email us at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. If you don't want to write out an email, you can call us and leave a voicemail at 919-960-1718. You could tweet me. I'm at WayneHalley9, and Steve is at SBall504man. You could go to our Facebook page. We're at facebook.com/thehockeynuts. And, of course, we also have a YouTube channel where we stream the recording of the weekly podcast live each week. In fact, we're recording right now and streaming on YouTube, and there's a link to the YouTube channel in the show notes for the podcast. And also, one thing we haven't done in the past that I'd like to see, if you found us through iTunes, apparently the iTunes, the rating system that they have there, it helps you climb the ratings if you have ratings or reviews of the podcast. So if you did find us through iTunes, we would very much appreciate it if you would go in and give us a rating or a review right there on iTunes, and let us know what you think, good or bad, about the show, and we'll be happy to have that feedback as well. Yes, and we're also looking for more participation in the show from listeners of the show, particularly if you are a fan of a team that we don't regularly talk about and want to get more involved in the show and talk about your team. We're certainly open to that. We could even, at some point in the future, bring some of you folks on. If you're a regular contributor to the show, we can bring some of you folks on as a guest and bring on a third talking head to the show. We're also open to that. So if you want to get involved in the show, we highly encourage it. And just reach us in any of the ways that I talked about there. So let's go ahead and start talking about what's been happening over the past week. And also, if you can't tell, I am battling a cold this week, so I apologize if I cough in your ears or anything like that. I'm going to try to edit most of those out before we release the show, but it is something I've been battling, and I know, Steve, you've been battling it a bit as well.
Yeah, it's that time of year.
But we have had a lot of stuff going on around the league this week. We've had some outdoor games. We've got a 16-game winning streak we need to talk about. We've got an equipment manager made his NHL debut earlier this week. And speaking of an equipment manager, the team that he played for, one of their prospects scored a goal this week in the minor leagues. So there's quite a bit of weird and wacky stuff going on around the league. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and review our three teams that we follow, what's been going on over the past week, and talk about some of the highlight games that went over the past week. And I'll go ahead and get the Bruins out of the way because they actually had a 2-1 week, but the last game was pretty disappointing. The two wins they had were both against Buffalo. It was a home and home on the 29th and 31st, and they beat Buffalo twice in that, 4-2 and 3-1. But the third game was a 3-0 loss at New Jersey on the 2nd, and I was very disappointed in just the overall effort of the Bruins that night to just get shut out by New Jersey, who's been struggling. I mean, they had a stretch there early in the season where they were playing really well, but lately they haven't been playing that well, and they've been struggling. And to see the Bruins come out and just put up a goose egg against one of the weaker teams in the league, in my opinion, was pretty disappointing, to say the least. So it's just more of the same from the Bruins. You get a great performance one night and not so much the next. So they've got to figure out a way to solve this inconsistency problem they've got if they're going to make a run at the playoffs, because they've got some teams now nipping at their heels. And the way the standings are right now, if they fall out of that third spot, they're out of the playoffs at this point. So So that's pretty much the nutshell as far as Boston's performance over the past week. How about the Rangers?
We had two wins on a road trip in Arizona, 6-3, and in Colorado, I believe that one was 6-2, and that was the game where Henrik Lundqvist passed Dominik Hasek to become the all-time leading European goalie.
Yeah, he did.
On the wins chart. But then last night they played a miserable game against Buffalo. Just exactly a carbon copy of what you just said. One of the well, you know, I don't know that they're the worst team in the league, but they're not playing well this year.
Yeah.
And we just lack, no passion, just lackluster performance, and they seem to give up on the game early on. So I was very disappointed in that loss. But other than that, we're 2-1, and I'm glad about that. So, always try to find a positive out of it.
Yeah, and those teams they did beat, they should have beat anyway. Colorado and Arizona are also two teams that are struggling.
Yeah, played very well in both of those games. So really, it was never in doubt in either one of those games.
Yeah.
But last night we were never in the game,
Yeah.
So
it's kind of weird how that goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Now our local team, Carolina, had a pretty up and down week. They did finish the week with a 1-2 record, but the one win they did get was a big one. They beat Chicago 3-2 on the 30th, and that was, of course, at home. But I went to the Chicago game last year when Chicago came here, and I don't know if you remember that. That game was a 5-0 win
for the Carolina Hurricanes.
For the Carolina Hurricanes against
I remember
Chicago.
that.
Probably the worst game that Chicago played all year. I mean, they just came out, and they had all the big names, too. Kane was there, Taves. They were all there. Crawford in net. Crawford got yanked, I think, after the third goal last year. But, my son and I went to that game last year. But this year, Carolina, for whatever reason, seems to play well against Chicago.
Blackhawks,
They beat them 3-2 this year, so that was a good win for them. But their other two games, they had a 3-2 loss against Pittsburgh on the 28th and a 3-1 loss against Tampa Bay on the 31st. That was New Year's Eve. We'll talk about that game a little bit later in the show. And then a 3-1 loss against the Devils on the 3rd. So actually, the Hurricanes finished 1-4 on the week. So they're struggling a bit.
They are. They're coming back to earth a little bit from their.
They are, but the competition they faced was pretty tough too. Pittsburgh, Chicago, Tampa Bay. Those are three of the better teams in the league. So
that's true.
So disappointing week for Carolina, but they'll. I'm sure they'll get some wins next week because I know Boston's on their schedule, and I'm not feeling too good about that one, and I'll tell you why when we get to that part in the show. As for some of the other notable games that went on around the league this week. The Sharks and the Flyers played a game on the 30th. That was a 2-0 win for the Sharks. That was in San Jose. The Penguins and Canadiens, two of the better teams in the East, faced each other on New Year's Eve, and the Penguins came out on top on that one 4-3. One of the biggest games of the year that got a lot of attention, Blue Jackets played the Wild on New Year's Eve. When they played that game, the Blue Jackets, I think, had a 14-game winning streak going on. Yeah. And the Wild were at 12-game winning streak.
That's
so
right.
Both of them were playing, and I think it's the first time, I saw a stat somewhere where it was the first time ever that two teams faced each other with a current winning streaks of 10 or more games in any professional sport, never mind hockey.
Yeah.
No two teams have played each other in the NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball with 10-game winning streaks. And I find that hard to believe, but apparently that is the case. And in that game, the Blue Jackets ended up beating the Wild, ending their winning streak and continuing theirs. And that was a 4-2 final in that game.
And that game really never was in doubt. I watched that game. Columbus got the lead early, and they really never looked back. Minnesota just never could. Columbus is just very good.
They are firing on all cylinders right now.
Really, really good.
4 strong lines on that team, which is scary.
Yeah.
And then one of the other games on the 1st, we had our first of 2 outdoor games this week. We had the Centennial Classic. And I love these outdoor games. I don't know about you, but I can't get enough.
Yeah.
Because you always have the alumni game before the regular game. So you get some of the greats of the past, and at this point in the history, we're seeing players that I grew up watching playing in the alumni game. So I'm loving to see these alumni games. Used to be when I was a kid, when they had these alumni games, I could care less because I didn't know who any of the players were.
Yeah.
Except for the real biggest of the biggest names. Well, now, the roster is a who's who of players that I grew up watching. So I love watching the alumni games, and then you get the real game after that. And well, anyway. Oh, and speaking of the alumni game, did you see that photobomb that Lanny McDonald did on the Detroit Red Wings?
No, I did not.
Oh, you've got to look that up. The Detroit Red Wings alumni were all lined up to take a team photo at center ice, with the logo on the ice.
I did see that.
Yeah,
and he came in.
And then all of a sudden you see, of a sudden you see Lanny McDonald sliding through the picture in front, and he's dressed in his Toronto gear, so you can't miss it. You see all those red jerseys, and all of a sudden you see a Toronto jersey come sliding through the picture.
I did see that. Oh, that was funny.
That was the greatest photobomb ever.
Because you just said so. I didn't know it was Lanny McDonald.
Yeah, it was Lanny McDonald that did that. So that was pretty hilarious. So, but yeah, so you had the alumni game, and then of course the regular game. The Maple Leafs came out on top on that one, 5-4 in an overtime. That was a great game too.
That was a great game.
Very exciting
and
game.
The goal at the end there was really something.
Maple Leafs held the lead pretty much right through the whole game.
Yep.
And then the Red Wings came back in the third, tied it, and then you had the overtime winner. Yeah, so great game to start off the outdoor season. Well, it's actually not the start because there was one back in October.
Right, the Heritage Classic.
Yep. But we had the Centennial Classic, which was celebrating the first event celebrating the 100 years of NHL existence. And that'll be something that will be a theme throughout all of 2017. So right through in the end of this season and into next season, they're going to be celebrating the 100-year anniversary of the NHL. So, but that was the first game. And then, of course, also on the first, the Capitals played the Senators to little fanfare because those are two decent teams, and the Capitals ended up winning that game 2-1. Right. And then on the second, the next day, which most people who have regular jobs had it off, but I had to work, so I missed this game. The Blues took on the Blackhawks in the Winter Classic in St. Louis at the home of the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Blues pretty much ran away with that one, and that ended up being and it really was close for most of the game until the third period, and then the Blues just scored a couple of goals right quickly, and then I think there was an empty netter at the end.
Yeah.
And the Blues ended up winning that one, going away 4-1.
Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yep. And of course, you had the alumni game before that one, and the big highlight I saw of the alumni game was Keith Tkachuk scoring a goal and then dabbing. Dabbing, and he said he was doing that for his daughter. She said she told him before the game that if he were to score a goal, that he needed to dab. So that's what he did. And then, of course, on the last interesting game of the week was the Sharks at the Kings. I didn't have the score written down for that one. Here it is. And the Kings ended up winning that one 2-1. And that was one of those West Coast games that I couldn't stay up to watch. But the Kings did win that one 2-1 in overtime. So the Kings look like they're coming alive.
Yeah,
here
they're playing well, and
they're playing well in recent weeks and days. So well, good. Well, let's bounce over to these. Since we're talking about results and of the past week, let's bounce over to the World Junior Championships a little bit.
Quite a tournament this year.
It's been a great tournament this year.
Yeah.
Now, of course, the at this point, the preliminary rounds are over, and we're well into the medal rounds now. And, of course, Sweden, Denmark, Czechs, and the Swiss made it out of the Group A in the preliminary round. And the USA, Canada, Russia, and Slovakia made it out of Group B. So those 8 teams moved on to the quarterfinals. And Russia ended up playing Denmark and beat them 4-0 to move on to the semis. Sweden ended up playing Slovakia and beat them 8-3. The Americans barely got by Switzerland.
Barely.
They had to score a late one to get take the lead in that one, and Swiss almost pulled off the upset there, and that would have been a huge upset because the Americans were heavy favorites in that game. And then the Czechs gave the Canadiens a run, and the Canadiens ended up winning that one 5-3.
Yeah.
So that means Russia, Sweden, USA, and Canada move on to the semifinal. And we talked about it a little bit at the top of the show. The Americans played the Russian in the first semifinal game that just ended right before we hit the record button. USA ended up winning that one 4-3 in a shootout. And later tonight, as we record this, Canada will be playing Sweden for the right to play the Americans in the gold medal game. And the gold medal game will take place at 8 p.m. on Thursday the 5th. So next week we will have all the action of that game. We'll be talking about that. So
that's right.
But I don't know. It's been a good tournament. It's been a really good tournament.
It has. And this is one of those years where I followed more than just the U.S. Team. I watched a little bit of Canada's game. I watched the Russians play. And I tell you what, that game today, either team played well enough to win, and it was a crapshoot in the end there. And those are the hardest games to lose.
Yeah.
And I could tell the Russian players, I wonder how they're going to do tomorrow night, because you could tell that loss really hurt them, even though they beat us the last 7 times in a row in the middle round.
Yeah.
7 times in a row, but that's not enough. They like playing the United States, and of course they beat us most of the time.
Yeah, the Russians love playing the Americans, and they love playing the Canadians in these big games, and it hits them hard when they lose, for sure.
Yeah.
And they were within a crossbar, hitting the crossbar in the shootout of winning the whole thing. So, I mean, it could have gone either way. And yeah, it is disappointed for them, but you got to have a winner. They both can't move on. So
that's right.
The today, Team USA was fortunate enough to get out of there with the shootout win. So, and Team USA is really talented too. We talked about last week all of the BU players and the BC players and the Harvard players that are playing for Team USA. But even all the kids are just amazingly talented players. And
that guy for Switzerland, Nico Hischier, I can't remember how you pronounce his last name. Hischier, tremendous player.
Yep. And most of these kids, of course, this tournament is all under 20 age kids, right? Most of these kids have been drafted and belong to NHL teams. A few of the kids in this tournament are still underage and haven't been drafted yet. So what you're seeing in this tournament, and that's why I like to watch it, is nobody knows who these kids are today. But in 5 years, all of these guys are going to be household names in the league. Every great player that is playing in the league today, whether it be Ovechkin from Russia, Taves from Canada, Backus with the U.S., all of these guys that are playing in the league today, all the big names played in this tournament when they were under 20. So it's a great tournament to watch. I mean, the kids, they play hard. It's fast. It's great hockey. And I enjoy this tournament every year. I look forward to it every year. So
great tournament.
All right. So let's move on back to the NHL, and we'll talk about some of the transactions that have happened over the past week. We've got, to start off with, we've got Alexander Burmistrov was claimed off waivers by the Arizona Coyotes from the Winnipeg Jets back on Monday. Burmistrov has 2 assists in 23 games. Selected by the Atlanta Thrashers with the number 8 overall pick in the 2010 NHL draft, Burmistrov had 30 goals, and 81 points in 298 NHL games with the Jets and Thrashers franchise. So one thing that is curious with this is the Arizona Coyotes are doing this an awful lot this year, aren't they?
Seem to be picking up players here and there, left and right. Yes, you're right. More so than any team in the NHL.
And what they're picking up these guys that were high-end draft picks that are underperforming, which Burmistrov, you could definitely be the number 8 overall pick and have only 81 points in almost 300 games. You would expect more of that from a guy that was number 8 overall.
Yeah. I agree.
So, and it just goes along with some of the other guys that Arizona has picked up is I don't know, they're picking up these reclamation projects. We'll see what they've got up their sleeves. But
Dave Tippett is a good coach.
Yeah.
He may have his input on this too.
And Chaikov, the GM, he's a numbers guy. He's an analytics guy. So, and he's doing things that are a little bit different than some of the old school guys, the old school GMs. So we'll see what they've got up their sleeve. But a couple of years from now, we could be talking about the Coyotes being a contender.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, they've got some good young talent in that organization anyway.
Yep.
They just need to develop. So. All right. Goalie Al Montoya signed a 2-year contract with the Montreal Canadiens on Monday. Financial terms were not released, but ESPN.com reported an average annual value of $1.0625 million a year. The Montoya, who's 31, is 4-4-2 with a 2.74 goals against average and .909 save percentage in 11 games. He signed a year contract as an unrestricted free agent back on July 1, so he would have been an unrestricted free agent again at the end of this season. In his most recent start, Montoya made 31 saves in a 3-2 overtime win against the Florida Panthers on December 29th. Selected by the Rangers with the number 6 overall pick in the 2004 NHL draft, Montoya is 59, 44, and 20 with a 2.61 goals against average and .909 save percentage in 147 games with the Coyotes, Islanders, and Jets, and Panthers, and Canadiens. So he's bounced around quite a bit.
He has.
With the number 6 overall pick, he had to have been projected to be a franchise guy, and I remember all the hype with him back then, back in 2004 when he was picked, and he just never really developed into that solid starter. Obviously, a lot of teams have given him a shot. He was drafted by the Rangers, but he never appeared in any games with the Rangers.
Yeah.
They must have traded him as a prospect.
I don't
remember. Yeah,
I don't remember on that one, but I can tell you that he's.
But obviously, if you got Henry,
yeah.
Obviously, you got Henry. That
probably
makes him expendable. So, But obviously Montreal thinks highly enough of him to make him their permanent backup. So that solidifies their goaltending situation.
That's right.
Speaking of goalies, Yaroslav Halak was placed on waivers by the Islanders on Friday in hope of generating a spark GM Garth Snow said his team desperately needs. Snow said the Islanders needs wins and feel that going forward, goalies Thomas Greiss and Jean-Francois Berube will give them the best chance. New York, who's 14, 15, and 6, is in last place in the Metropolitan Division and in 15th in the 16-team Eastern Conference. Halak was pulled in the second period of the Islanders' 6-4 loss at the Wild on Thursday after allowing 4 goals and 24 shots, including 3 goals in a span of a minute 20. Wow.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah. It's hard to believe it's the same goalie who played so well in the World Cup, with Team Europe.
That's true.
He was playing very well, and surprising that he would. Here we are, 2.5 months after that, 3 months. Well,
yep.
And here he is on waivers.
Yeah, and Coach Jack Capuano was pretty candid. He said Yarrow wasn't sharp at all. He gave up some soft goals, and we had to battle back. We did against a real good team. We need a better effort from Yarrow, quite honestly. So, pretty rough words coming from the coach.
Yeah.
So then he further said 4 goals and 24 shots isn't going to get it done. And he ended up making it through waivers without being claimed. So
right.
He's down in the American League.
Bridgeport,
playing for Bridgeport. Yep, New York's minor league team, which is not that far of a drive for them. In fact, there's probably a ferry that goes across from Bridgeport into Brooklyn. So yeah, pretty rough. And it came out today. I didn't have it in the show notes, but I just remembered it happened. The Bruins did the same thing with
Anton Hudobin.
With Hudobin, yep.
I saw that.
So he just went on waivers just this afternoon. So he's still eligible to be picked up. Probably by this time tomorrow, we'll know whether or not he makes it through waivers and goes back down to Providence. And I think they haven't announced yet who they're going to bring up, but McIntyre is probably the guy they're going to bring up to back him up. Because McIntyre has won, I think, 12 straight games in the American League. Yeah, wow. He's on a roll down there. He's playing lights out hockey down in Providence. So I think the Bruins are going to reward him with at least a backup role anyway in Boston. They're looking for somebody. Boston, been their biggest need is backup goalie because it seems like whenever Tuukka doesn't play, the Bruins pretty much don't have a shot at winning when a Tuukka sits. So I think they still only have one win with anybody other than Tuukka in net. So and they got to give Tuukka a rest if they're going to make a playoff run. They've got to get Tuukka sitting more than he has been. So
I agree.
All right, well, let's move on to injuries.
Once again, a number of injuries, Wayne.
Yeah, there have been. It's been another very busy week on the injury wire. And we'll go ahead and start with Buffalo Sabres center Johan Larsson is out for the season after having surgery on his wrist and elbow, according to Gotland newspaper in Sweden. Larsson was injured during a 3-1 loss at the Bruins on Saturday and had surgery in Boston over the weekend. He was on his way back to Buffalo on Monday, according to the Sabres website. Larsson, who's 24, had 6 goals and 5 assists in 36 games. Buffalo coach Dan Bosma said after practice Monday that Larsson is out indefinitely, but apparently he told the Swedish newspaper that he's going to be out for the season. San Jose Sharks defenseman Mark-Edward Vlasic, Pickle Man, was placed on injured reserve on Monday. Vlasic was hit in the face by a puck with 30 seconds remaining in the third period of a 2-0 win against the Flyers on Friday. He did not play in a 3-2 loss at the Kings on Saturday. 29-year-old is second on the Sharks in average ice time per game, right behind defenseman Brent Burns. He has 3 goals and 6 assists in 35 games. Sharks recalled defenseman Marco Mueller from the San Jose Barracuda of the American Hockey League. He has 8 assists in 25 AHL games this season, a goal and 3 assists in 50 NHL games in the past 2 seasons. So, yeah, Vlasic is your stay-at-home guy where Burns is their offensive defenseman.
Right.
So,
and he had a great Stanley Cup as well. You know, we talked last week about Brian Dumoulin and how well he played for Pittsburgh.
He sure did.
You could say the same thing of Vlasic with San Jose. He had a great Stanley Cup.
Yep, he did. Chicago Blackhawks forward Marian Hossa will not play in the 2017 Bridgestone Winter Classic. Of course, I pulled this story before the Winter Classic. against the St. Louis Blues on Monday, and he, in fact, did not play. Joel Quenneville said Sunday. Quenneville previously said he was hopeful that Hossa, who's on injury reserve with an upper body injury, could play in the Winter Classic. Hossa last played on December 20th and has missed the past 4 games. He did not practice Sunday and skated in Chicago. And, in fact, I saw a story today that he will be back, I think, in their next game. I think they're hopeful that he'll be back anyway.
That's good.
New Jersey Devils defenseman John Moore has a concussion and was placed on injured reserve on Sunday. The Devils recalled defenseman Steven Santini from Albany of the American Hockey League. Moore was taken off the ice on a stretcher early in the first period of New Jersey's 6-2 loss to the Capitals on Saturday. Moore fell awkwardly into the boards after a hit by Capitals forward Tom Wilson, 3:10 into the game, and remained on the ice for several minutes until he was strapped to a board. Some teammates helped to steady the stretcher as Moore was lowered onto it. He was taken to a hospital for evaluation and release. Moore has 13 points in 37 games this season. So I didn't see the hit on that one. I don't know if you saw it.
I did not see the hit on that play.
But
the concussion, that concussion thing is really rearing its head a bunch now.
Yeah. Well, they're being way more cautious about it than they have in years past.
And
that's probably why we're seeing more of it.
It's hard. It's hard on a player because you're relying on a doctor, and until a doctor gives you clearance, you can't come back and play.
And they may otherwise feel fine, but but they have a battery of tests that they have to pass before they'll let them back in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, defenseman P.K. Subban was placed on injured reserve by the Nashville Predators on Sunday with an upper body injury, and his status will be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks. Subban, who was acquired by the Montreal Canadiens, or from the Montreal Canadiens, in June in a trade for longtime Nashville captain Shea Weber, hasn't played since December 15th. He'll miss his 8th consecutive games when the Canadiens come to the Bridgestone Arena on Tuesday. In fact, I saw that highlights of that game, and the Predators gave Weber a nice tribute because that was his first game back in Nashville. So he was very appreciative of that. But, yes, Subban did, in fact, miss that game. And Montreal won that game in overtime, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Boston Bruins forward David Backes will be out indefinitely with a concussion. Backes was injured on a hit by Buffalo Sabres forward William Carrier. Not sure how that's... If he's French, it's Carrier, but Carrier if he's English. In the first period of the Bruins' 4-2 win on Thursday. Backes has 19 points in 33 games with the Bruins this season, his first in Boston after spending the first 10 seasons of his career with the St. Louis Blues. Backes, who has 479 points in 760 NHL games, had missed 16 games in his previous 8 seasons. So, and I saw a story update today that he could play tomorrow night, Thursday night, which initially when this happened, all the news coming out of Boston was he's going to be out a while, but apparently he's made a pretty quick recovery. Quicker than they had hoped anyway, because it looks like he may be back Thursday night. So, but I guess he's a game time decision on that one.
I did not see the hit, but I've read the sentiment since then. It was a dirty play, and
yeah, there's been a lot of trash talking going back and forth among players since that game over Twitter.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So yeah, the Bruins were not too happy with that one, especially with Backes being one of their top players. Winnipeg Jets forward Marco Dano will miss about 8 weeks with a lower body injury, Coach Paul Maurice said Saturday. The Jets placed a 22-year-old forward on injured reserve on Friday, a day after he was injured when he crashed into the end boards during the second period of the Winnipeg's 4-3 loss to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Dano had 3 goals and 10 points in 28 games up to this point in this season. 8 weeks, that's a long injury.
That is. That's what we're suffering through right now with Mika Zibanejad.
Yeah, he's been out a while.
Since the beginning of the year. It's a long time. 8 weeks is a long time.
8 weeks, he's probably got a pretty bad sprain, or I didn't say exactly what is hurt on him, lower body injury, but it could be probably a knee or an ankle if he hit the boards that hard. Dallas forward Jamie Benn will not play Wednesday against the Montreal Canadiens because of a foot injury. Benn was injured in the second period of a 3-1 loss to the Florida Panthers on Saturday when he went awkwardly into the boards. The Dallas captain finished the game but didn't practice on Monday or Tuesday. Benn hasn't missed a game with an injury since March 14th of 2013. He's played in every regular season game since the 14-15 season. Benn last missed a game April 11th, 2014, the last game of the regular season when he was a healthy scratch to rest for the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So Iron Man. But it sounds like he won't be out for long.
Yeah. I doubt very seriously. Sometimes I wonder if these guys don't, based on Jamie Benn is arguably their best player. They're probably going to rush him back on the ice if there's any possibility that they can.
Especially where they're trying to struggle to stay above water in the standings. Yeah.
Right.
All right. Carolina Hurricanes goalie Eddie Lack was diagnosed with a concussion on Tuesday. Lack, who's 28, hasn't appeared in a game since November 10th and was placed on injury reserve with a concussion on November 21st. He was activated from IR on December 21st, but the Hurricanes said he was sick before their game against the Tampa Bay Lightning at Amalie Arena on December 31st. In 5 games, 4 starts, he's 1-2-1 with a .379 goals against average and .856 save percentage. It's kind of a weird story here because it looked like he was about ready to come back on the 21st of December. And then all of a sudden, he fell ill, and now he's going back on the injury reserve with a concussion. So I don't know if he had some sort of a relapse or if something. I didn't see the details on this. I don't know if he had some sort of he got hit again in practice. I don't know what caused him to take a step back.
Well, he was out since the 21st of November.
Yeah, he was out since November 21st. He was about ready to come back on the 21st of December, and then all of a sudden he's back on injury reserve, and it sounds like he's going to be out a while.
Yeah.
Now, so something must have happened that he re-injured or something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That is all I have for injuries, unless you have any.
No, I agree with your with the injuries that you got completely.
Yep. Okay, good. Let's move on to suspensions and fines then. There was only one last week. Arizona Coyotes defenseman Anthony DeAngelo has been suspended for 3 games without pay for violating Rule 40.4, physical abuse of officials, during NHL game number 556 in Calgary on Saturday, the 31st. The NHL announced this week. The incident occurred at 20 minutes of the second period, so basically at the very end of the second period. DeAngelo was assessed a game misconduct for abuse of officials. I didn't see what happened there, but
I heard about
physical abuse of officials. Obviously, he must have pushed or shoved or maybe poked. Sometimes, just put a finger on the chest and poked.
Wow.
Officials don't like to be touched in that manner.
Yeah.
So they must have. I don't know. I didn't have time to look up the video on that one, but he got a game misconduct for it, and they come down pretty harsh on him. 3 games.
3 games.
Yep. So they're making it pretty clear that they don't want the officials touched.
Yep.
All right. That's the only one I had. So we can go ahead and move on to milestones, records, and honors. The NHL launched its year-long Centennial celebration on Sunday with a historic ceremony revealing the names of the first 33 members of the 100 greatest NHL players, presented by Molson Canadian. And no, we're not sponsored by Molson Canadian. We were welcome to be sponsored by Molson Canadian. The 33 legends who played predominantly during the league's first 50 years, from 1917 to 1966, were honored before the 2017 Scotiabank NHL Centennial Classic between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. The players were selected by a blue ribbon panel comprised of 58 individuals representing more than 1,800 years of experience in the game. The remaining 67 players will be named on January 27th in Los Angeles as part of a special event at the 2017 Honda NHL All-Star Weekend. And I have a link in the show notes to this article that lists all 33 of those players. I don't think we want to spend time listing them all, but
all but the last 5 weren't there anyways. Many are deceased and had family members come out, but I think it was the last 5 or 6 players.
Yeah, most of these guys, both of the Richard brothers, like for example, Henri and Maurice Richard, the Montreal Canadiens. Those are 2 of the bigger names that I heard. But yeah, you're dealing with next of kin that were there in their presence. And then the final 5, I know for the Bruins, Johnny Busick was there. They had hoped that Milt Schmidt would have gone, but he was unable to attend because he was ill. And yeah, there were about, like you said, 5 players that actually showed up. Bobby Hull was one of them, I think, wasn't he?
Trying to remember if Bobby Hull was one of the ones that they pulled out.
No, he was in St. Louis.
Yeah, he was in St. Louis. He dropped the opening puck with his son, Brett.
That's right. Yeah, that was an interesting scene there. You had Brett Hull and Bobby Hull. Brett, of course, wearing the St. Louis jersey. Bobby wearing a Chicago jersey.
Yeah.
And they dropped the puck in St. Louis for that game. But Bobby Hull will definitely be on the list.
No question.
Yeah. So, but the players that were named this weekend, like they said, they're played before 1966. So I certainly don't remember any of them, seeing them as, and I've seen old videos of them playing, but I've never seen them play, live in person, because these players were around long before I was even around.
Yeah.
All right. Toronto Maple Leaf center Austin Matthews, New York Rangers left wing Chris Kreider, and Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury have been NHL's 3 stars for the week ending January 1st. Matthews led the NHL with 6 points in 3 outings, all multi-point performances to help the Maple Leafs complete a perfect week, capped by a victory in the Centennial Classic. Kreider shared the league lead with 4 goals in 3 games to power the Rangers to a trio of victories. And Fleury turned aside 77 of the 82 shots he faced to guide the Pittsburgh Penguins to 3 wins last week.
Yep.
So good week for your Chris Kreider.
Good week for Chris. Not a good night last night, though. We won't get into that. I'm certainly glad that I didn't listen to Mr. Rick Jenneret last night.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was a home game, so that I didn't have to listen to Rick Jenneret's mouth.
See, this is why you should get the online package and not the center ice. You can choose your broadcast.
That's true.
You can watch the Rangers broadcast even when they're on the road.
You would never choose Rick Jenneret, though. That's the thing. See, I would never choose him in a game again, ever.
Right.
I won't go into detail on that one.
Yeah.
Buffalo fans can hate me if you want.
Yeah, he is a bit annoying if you're not a fan of the Sabres, for sure. But then again, so is Jack Edwards. Is nails on a chalkboard to anybody not a Boston Bruins fan too. So I hear it from my cousins all the time how much of a homer that Jack Edwards is, but I love the guy. So
no, I think Jack Edwards is not. I am not. I've threatened to quit watching a game that Rick Jenneret is. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How, and he's looking for any chance to throw in that long, score, like a soccer announcer.
Yeah. Well, it'll suck when the Buffalo Sabres start getting good, and we're going to have to see more of him. What annoys me most about Buffalo is the horn in their arena. That horn is it's not quite as ear splitting as Montreal's, but it's pretty high up there.
Yeah,
because I remember that. I remember that it was the same. I think it's the same horn that they had in the Odd back in the day before they moved to their new arena. I think they moved that same horn over. It sounds exactly the same. I know that.
I think we're hitting a trend here. Don't watch the Buffalo Sabres.
Right.
Yeah. if you unless your team steamrolls them, it's not a fun game to watch if you're watching it in Buffalo.
Right. Yeah. Well, Buffalo's one of the division rivals for the Bruins, of course. And then you've got that New York rivalry with the Rangers and Sabres too. So
yeah, which Lindy Ruff, former Ranger, of course.
Yep.
For many years. Yep.
Yep. All right, let's move on. Columbus Blue Jackets goaltender Sergei Bobrovsky, Pittsburgh Penguins center Evgeny Malkin, and Minnesota Wild goaltender Devin Dubnyk were named the NHL's 3 stars for the month of December. Bobrovsky went 12-0-0 with a 1.75 goals against average and a .939 save percentage to guide the Blue Jackets to a perfect 14-0 December and to the top of the league standings. Malkin paced the league with 21 points in 15 games to power the Penguins to a 12-1-2 December and second place in the overall NHL standings. And Dubnyk went 10-1-1 with a 1.88 goals against average, .934 save percentage, and 1 shutout to backstop the Wild to a 12-1-1 December, including a franchise record 12-game winning streak. All incredible numbers, if you ask me.
Yeah, you wonder how they get topped. That's just unheard of. All 3 of them.
All 3 of them played for teams that had incredible month. Forward Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins and Connor McDavid of the Edmonton Oilers, defenseman PK Subban of the Nashville Predators, and goalie Carey Price of the Montreal Canadiens topped their respective divisions in fan votes for the 2017 NHL All-Star Fan Vote to earn the first spots and captaincy in the 2017 Honda NHL All-Star Game in Los Angeles on Sunday, January 29th. So no John Scott this year.
Yeah.
Price and Crosby captured the most votes in the Atlantic Division and Metropolitan Division, while Subban led the Central and McDavid topped the Pacific Division. The All-Star Game will once again feature a 3-on-3 All-Star tournament, showcasing the NHL's most talented star players from each division. Introduced at last year's All-Star Game in Nashville, the All-Star Tournament will feature 3 20-minute games with star players from each division making up the 4 All-Star teams, the Pacific, Central, Atlantic, and Metropolitan. Each team will be made up of 11 players from each division, 6 forwards, 3 Ds, and 2 goalies. The LA Kings, who are celebrating their 50th anniversary season, and the city of Los Angeles will host the 2017 NHL All-Star Weekend on January 27th through 29th. And then they, of course, list all the TV listings for everything going on. I love the All-Star Weekend, especially now that they're doing this 3-on-3 tournament. That was really fun to watch last year.
It was very exciting. And with the commercials that they've had already for it, which are very entertaining.
Yep.
It's going to be a good All-Star game, I believe.
Yep. I really enjoy that format that they're doing. And the KHL is also doing that same format. So obviously they liked it too. But yeah, we'll have a lot more coverage on the All-Star Weekend coming up on that. Toronto Maple Leafs center Austin Matthews, who led all rookies with 12 points in 12 games, has been named the NHL's Rookie of the Month for December. Matthews edged Winnipeg Jets right wing Patrick Laine, Calgary Flames left wing Matthew Tkachuk, and Carolina Hurricanes right wing Sebastian Aho, and Pittsburgh Penguins goaltender Matt Murray for the honor. It's kind of weird to see Matt Murray in the rookie talks, because he didn't really come around until the playoffs.
That's right.
So he technically plays this year as a rookie, even though he has a Stanley Cup ring.
Yeah.
The 19-year-old Scottsdale, Arizona native joins teammate William Nylander and Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Zach Werenski as Rookie of the Month winners in 26-17. Nylander won it in October, and Werenski won it in November. All right, let's move on to some other stories that have happened that are kind of don't fit into the other categories that we have. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman echoed the statements Deputy Commissioner Bill Daley gave Friday regarding the negative sentiment that exists from the Board of Governors towards participation in the 2018 Pyeongchang Olympics. Absent some compelling reason, I'm not sure there's a whole lot of sentiment on the part of the clubs to go through the disruption of taking almost 3 weeks off during the season, Commissioner Bettman said on Sunday during a joint press conference with Wayne Gretzky prior to the start of the Centennial Classic. Commissioner Bettman said that while the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics and the 2010 Vancouver Olympics were different because they were played in North America, participating in Olympics that are halfway around the world is not ideal from a business or player safety aspect. Not just for the risk of injury, but because I see it discussed and reported during the Olympics. But the compression to the regular season is something that concerns us, Commissioner Bettman said. We're hearing complaints now about the 5-day break built into the schedule this season. While players say they like the 5-day break, they're also saying they don't like the compression that comes along with it. And that's something that is of great concern to us as well. Donald Fehr, however, who's the executive director of the NHL Players Association, had a different tone when he spoke about the Olympics and how the players feel about where they are in the process of resolving it. I'm more optimistic now than I ever have been, Fehr said. Fehr said he's convinced that an agreement can be reached with the International Ice Hockey Federation on covering the finances associated with participating in the Olympics, including paying for the travel, insurance, and accommodations for the players and their guests. So, all that, basically nothing's changed since we last talked about it.
Right.
It sounds like the owners and the board of directors for the league don't want to participate in the Olympics. The players do, and they haven't come to an agreement on how they can get it done. But several players have come out saying, I don't care what they agree to, I'm going. Like Ovechkin's one of their biggest names.
If the IOC ponied up the money for insurance, if all of a sudden tomorrow we hear the IOC has decided to pony up the money for the insurance so that Team USA could get their players over there and all expenses paid as far as insurance goes. What do you think would happen? You think that would be the resolution Gary Bettman would need to see to open up the floodgates for the professionals to inhabit the Olympics again?
I still think he's against it, and here's why. I heard on another podcast earlier this week, and I'm sorry I can't remember which podcast it was. I listened to so many hockey-related podcasts. I heard on another podcast another theory that the NHL is trying to revive this World Cup thing.
Right.
The NHL pockets all of the money for this for the World Cup.
Right.
All the money that's to be made doesn't go to the IOC, doesn't go to the IIHF. The NHL gets it all. And if they were to make the World Cup the premier international tournament ahead of the Olympics, that is better for the league and its owners.
Agreed.
Also,
Wayne, I really believe that there is a heightened sentiment among the teams of injuries to their players during the Olympics,
yep.
which is going to be held in the midst of the regular season, right before the playoffs.
Yep.
And teams don't want to lose, a Sidney Crosby because he got hurt overseas in the Olympics.
Yep.
So I think that's a major stumbling block.
But you have that, too, with the World Cup. Granted, the World Cup's played at the beginning of the year, and these guys that get hurt have a chance to recover before the playoffs, but they still get lost to their team. But that was an intriguing theory by this podcast was the NHL is they're really trying to push this World Cup thing. And if they can get out of the Olympics, then the World Cup becomes a premier tournament, and they essentially make out like a bandit with that.
I would like to see the World Cup take off. So after this year watching it, I really would. I hope they do it every 4 years.
Well, look how big it is in soccer. I mean, it's huge in soccer.
And the Team North America was so intriguing. It just would be better, I think, than the Olympics. Where I would like to see our young. After watching the World Juniors today, we should have our youngsters. The under 20 guys.
Yeah.
Go over there and make it fun.
And that would make it fun for the Olympics. That would make it really fun.
Yep.
And the only problem I have with the World Cup, if you want to make this the premier international tournament and possibly only international tournament involving NHL players, you got to go to a country format. Forget this North America team. Forget this Young Stars team. Just have the teams, have the 8 top teams in qualifying, and 7 and 8 are probably not going to have a realistic shot at playing, but at least they're there. And then you may even have in the summertime a qualifying tournament for some of the lesser countries to make that final group of 8, or make it a 12-team tournament. Whatever you want to do, just make it a country tournament, not this group of. I mean, it's entertaining to have this Young Stars team. It's entertaining to have, the European team so that all 8 teams are strong.
Right.
But you don't have that sentiment with the European team that they're playing for their country. And certainly the Young Stars aren't playing for any country. So you need to make it a country tournament if they're going to do that.
They really could come up with a 12-team format too. I believe they could come up with 12 teams for the World Cup. And I might have people laughing me right out the door on that. Would it be a competitive 12 teams? Probably not.
No, probably 6. 6 would still only have a
realistic shot of winning.
Yeah,
but you could come up with 12 teams. You could come up with 12 teams and have 3 groups, and mix 1 to 2 teams like a Belarus or a Latvia or Kazakhstan. You could throw them in there in the mix. And they would provide competitive hockey. And listen, there's no loss for players in those countries.
Right. You look at the, to go back to soccer, you look at that tournament, it's a 32-team tournament. You think all 32 teams have a realistic shot of winning? I mean, USA puts a team in the Soccer World Cup, and on the men's side, they really don't have a real shot at winning it.
Right.
They may surprise a team or two and upset in the early rounds, and that's fun for the people that live in the country.
Sure it is.
So why not expand the hockey? Go 16 teams. There's definitely 16 countries that have at least one NHL player.
Yep.
But there's 16 countries that have players that have enough players playing at a professional level to field a team.
You'd have France. France could field a team if you went to 16. France would be in it. The UK would be in it.
Yep.
You'd have you'd have and it would be very interesting. And what's to say that it also wouldn't be draw more fans? It's definitely going to be more of a worldwide event. I guarantee you they're at the beer gardens in Munich, loving every minute of that, because Germany used to have teams every year in the Olympics.
And they say that's one of the points of this World Cup is to grow the game around the world. Well, no better way to do it than include more countries.
I agree. Wayne, I agree with you 100%. And I think they could do 12, no problem. No problem. You'd have Norway in it every year. Why is Norway not in it now? They believe me, they've got they've got the players to field a team.
Yep. And if hockey catches on in China the way because the KHL put a team in China this year, and from what I understand, hockey is rapidly growing in popularity there. Who knows, in 20 years China could put a team together that can compete globally.
Yep.
So you never know. All right, another interesting story that happened this week. Carolina Hurricanes prospect Alex Nedeljkovic lived the dream of every goalie on Friday. Nedeljkovic, a second-round pick, 37th overall in the 2014 NHL draft, and by all accounts is the future of goaltending for Carolina, by the way, was playing for the Florida Everblades of the ECHL when he scored into an empty net in the waning seconds of a 5-3 win against the Atlanta Gladiators. Nedeljkovic became the 12th ECHL goalie to score a goal, and the first since Brian Foster of Cincinnati in 2013. And Nedeljkovic's offensive prowess did not come at the expense of his regular job, as he made 39 saves for the win. So kudos to him for scoring a goal. I love seeing goalies.
Yes.
I love seeing goalies trying to score a goal. I wish more NHL guys would do it.
Yeah, that is the albatross of the NHL, the goalie scoring the goal.
Yep, it doesn't happen often because, everybody takes such a defensive stance. So, all right, so let's move on to our HockeyNuts.com power rankings for the week. And this week, it is your turn. So I will let you go
It's
ahead.
my turn.
Yep, I'll go ahead and let you run it down for us.
I'm going to start at 15 this week.
Okay.
Since that just about covers the playoffs.
Yep.
And we're going to start at number 15. I had the Los Angeles Kings maintaining the same slot that they did last week. At 14, I've got Boston, who moved up a couple slots because they had a good week. And at number 13, I had the Ottawa Senators. They dropped one slot from 12 last week to 13.
Yep.
The Edmonton Oilers dropped a couple of slots. They really played poorly against Columbus a couple nights ago. Columbus was able to beat them pretty handily, and somebody's got to put up a better game than that to beat these guys on a 16-game streak. The Philadelphia Flyers are at number 11, dropping 2 slots from 9. The St. Louis Blues moved up a slot from 11 to 10 with their Winter Classic victory.
Yep.
The Anaheim Ducks had a very good week, jumped up 5 slots from 14 to 9. The San Jose Sharks maintained their position at number 8 this week from last week, the same as the Washington Capitals. They maintain their position at number 7. Then we have the Minnesota Wild dropping from 2 to 6. I had them dropping. Primarily, they lost the game against Columbus. I'm not sure what they did in the next game, but I base that on their total points versus the teams that are directly above and below them.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. Montreal position from number 6 to number 5, which is virtually the same as last week. Chicago maintained themselves at 4 and take the 4th slot. Yep. The Rangers moved up from 5 to 3 based on a 2-1 week. They had a good week this week. Pittsburgh moved up from 3 to 2. Really, the 2 best teams right now in the league are the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And, right now Columbus is playing better. 16 wins in a row.
Yep.
But those are the 2 best teams in the league right now.
Yep. And Columbus, a note on Columbus, too, they can tie the NHL record for longest winning streak ever at 17. I think at games tomorrow night against Washington.
That's right.
And then they play your Rangers on Saturday. They could break the record if they somehow get by Washington. I honestly don't see them getting by Washington. It's in Washington. Washington's playing very well right now. I think Washington is poised to end the streak Thursday night. You heard it here first.
And I agree with you. Alex Ovechkin lives for those games.
Yep.
So I think that's a must-watch game tomorrow night.
Yep.
with every game that the Columbus Blue Jackets win. I'm almost watching all.
I'll probably be bouncing back
games.
and forth. I'll probably be bouncing back and forth between that game and the gold medal game in the World Juniors tomorrow night.
I agree.
So
Super night of hockey.
So yeah, I agree with that list there. Columbus is right now playing until they lose. They're going to be right there in that spot, and Pittsburgh is not far behind them. So Pittsburgh is playing really well as well. All right, well, let's take a week or look at the week ahead for our teams. The Bruins have a game at home against Edmonton on the 5th. That's Milan Lucic is coming home for that, so there'll be a lot of attention in the game for that. It's not his first game back in Boston because he did come back with LA when he was playing for them, but it's his first game back in Boston as a Edmonton Oiler. The Florida Panthers are the next game on the list, and that's at Florida on the 7th. And then they come back to Carolina on the 8th, and I'm probably going to be going to that game as well. That's a Sunday 5 p.m. start. And then they go out to St. Louis. Then they go out to St. Louis on the 10th. Now, I alluded to it earlier. I don't feel good about the Bruins on the 8th, and the reason is they're going to Florida the night before, so the Carolina game will be a back-to-back for Boston.
Yeah.
And Carolina plays on the 6th. In fact, I'll do it right now. They play St. Louis on the 5th, then Chicago on the 6th, and then they get a day off before the Boston game on the 8th. So the Bruins will be playing a back-to-back. Carolina will be playing with a day's rest, and then Carolina plays the Blue Jackets on the 10th. So, and the Bruins haven't done much with the second game of back-to-back so far this year, so that's why I say I don't feel good about that game, but we're still planning on going anyway because the Bruins only come 3 times every 2 years, so when they come to town, we try to go.
I hear you. Yeah.
So, but your Rangers have a light week. I think this is their bye week this week.
We get the 5 days off. So we play Philadelphia tonight at the conclusion of this podcast. And then as you alluded to on Saturday, we play the Columbus Blue Jackets at Nationwide Arena in Columbus.
Yep.
Which, if they beat Washington tomorrow night, is going to be a hell of a brouhaha.
Yep.
I'm hoping we can win that game.
Yep.
I really am, but Columbus they're really playing well. And you know, I said it before at the podcast at the first of the year. Is Sergei Bobrovsky really the guy in net? Is he? I'm going to eat my words on that. He is without a doubt a great goalie for them, the best they could possibly have, probably.
Yep.
And as long as they can ride Sergei Bobrovsky, they better, because he is truly. He's got to be the best candidate if the season ended today.
Yep. Well, the question is, can he continue it in the playoffs? That's the big question.
That's true.
So, but yeah, after the 7th, the Rangers are off, and they don't play again till the 13th. So yeah, the Rangers have their quote unquote bye week. That's kind of how all the players and coaches have been referring to it. Is they call it the bye week. So the Rangers have theirs this upcoming week. So very light schedule for them. All right, other games I've got circled on the calendar for this upcoming week. I've got the Blue Jackets, of course, playing the Capitals on the 5th. That could tie the record. That's tomorrow night. The Wild play the Sharks on the 5th. There's 2 teams that are strong in the West. Canadiens and Maple Leafs play a hockey night in Canada. That's always fun to watch, regardless of how good the teams are. Capitals play the Senators on the 7th. 2 good teams. Flyers, Blue Jackets on the 8th. And the Wild and the Ducks on the 8th as well. Capitals, Canadiens on the 9th. Those are 2 of the better teams in the East. And then your next week rivalry game is Penguins Capitals, which should be a barn burner.
Yes, the Wednesday night rivalry always is. And you know, one thing, Wayne, not to downplay, before we go into the next segment of the show, did you know that one of the things that they talked about at this year's Winter Classic, every team in the NHL has played in an outdoor game except 7.
Yep.
Can you pick those teams?
I know one of them.
I'll give you this right now. Because of the Heritage Classic in Canada, every single Canadian team has played in an outdoor game.
Yep. I could probably name a few of them. Let's see. I know Carolina hasn't played in one yet.
That's right.
Florida?
That's correct.
Phoenix?
That's right.
Tampa Bay?
That's right.
Dallas?
That's correct.
Let's see. Colorado's played in one. Wow. Who's that? Am I missing one?
You're missing 2.
Missing 2.
You're doing very, very well. That's very good.
Let's see. Shoot. I can't think of the others. one of the California teams has got that to have not played.
No. All 3 California teams have played.
How have they?
Yep.
That's right. They had those games in L.A. last year.
Yep.
And that's when they all played. Shoot. I can't come up with it. Who are they?
The Nashville Predators.
Oh, that's right. Yep. They
and
haven't.
Columbus Blue Jackets.
How are the Blue Jackets not played in one?
They have not played in an outdoor game.
I bet they get one next year.
I bet they may even get the Winter Classic.
Yep.
Because that's a cold place to put the game.
Yep. I would love to see an outdoor game here in Carolina, but I just don't know where they would put it.
Yeah.
It's not a traditional hockey market, so I don't think you'll ever see one here. But if they can pull off an outdoor game in LA, they can pull off one here. It's about the same climate. So
that's right. No question about it.
So there's a number of college football stadiums they can do. I know Carolina, University of North Carolina and Chapel Hill, they've got a 70,000 seat arena or football stadium that I'm sure could definitely host an outdoor game.
Kenan Stadium.
Yep. And what would be kind of interesting to see them do would be to have a game there and have the Hurricanes wear, take it a college style, have Carolina Hurricanes wear Carolina blue instead of red for the game. Wouldn't that be kind of interesting?
That would be.
Yep. And then, of course, you have, if they wanted to do an outdoor game at an NFL stadium, they could play down in Charlotte, but it probably wouldn't draw very well. They'd have to keep it locally to this area. But I think they could fill a 70,000 seat arena for an outdoor game.
There'd be a lot of people driving down there and watch that game.
And then, of course, NC State football, their stadium is literally right across the street from where the Carolina Hurricanes play. They could play there. That stadium's about as big. I think that one seats over 60,000. So, there's that as well. But who knows? Maybe someday when all the other cities are sick of doing outdoor games, they might bring one here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to our NCAA Minute. And just a note with Maine, which is my team. They had one game last week, and it was a loss at UNH. It was a non-conference game. They actually played that game at Verizon Wireless Arena in Manchester, New Hampshire. That's not UNH's home rink, but that's very close to where their campus is. And Maine only has one game this upcoming week. They're playing Team USA, the under-18 team, the National Development Program team. And that is made up of pretty much guys that are the U18s. None of them are drafted yet. Almost all of them are committed to colleges within the next year or two. So there's basically future college prospects and future college all-star team, essentially. But that Team USA development program, most of your who's who of American players that have come out, that have been drafted in the last 10 years or so, played in that program at one point or another. So that'll be a good game.
That would be.
As for the rest of college hockey, most of the meat of the conference schedules around the country starts next weekend. So you'll see teams mostly playing within their conference from here on out. You see very little non-conference games after this coming weekend. But this past weekend, there were a few upsets around the country. Number 6 BC lost to number 14 Quinnipiac 4-1 on Thursday. On Friday, unranked Alaska Anchorage beat Bemidji State. They're the number 15 team. That was a 4-1 game. Providence tied Denver. Providence is unranked. Denver is the number 2 team in the country. That was a 2-2 game. Ferris State tied Boston College. Ferris State's unranked. Boston College is number 6. Robert Morris, who's unranked, beat Quinnipiac 5-2. Quinnipiac is the number 14 team. They were once number 7. They've been sliding down the rankings. So
yeah.
Connecticut, and also another unranked team, beat St. Cloud State, who's the number 18 team. That was a mild upset. That was 4-3. That was at Connecticut. And on Saturday, Miami, unranked, beat in-state rival Ohio State 6-3. That was at Ohio State, and Ohio State's the number 9 team in the country, so that was a pretty big upset there. And then Providence, in the second game against Denver, actually beat them the second time around 3-1. And Denver, of course, number 2 team in the country. So Providence won the national championship a couple seasons ago, but they're unranked this year. But they took 3 out of 4 points against number 2 team in the country, Denver. So that's a big weekend for Providence. And as for games this coming weekend, the biggest news around college hockey is we've got Frozen Fenway.
Yeah.
is starts this weekend. It's actually happens over 2 weekends, this weekend and next weekend. What they've done is, they've been doing it ever since they've had the Winter Classics at Fenway Park in Boston. They've been laying down the ice here and there for college teams. And actually, they lay down the ice for a couple of weeks, and you get college games there, high school games, public skates. They just make it a big, huge event over a full 2-week thing. But the headlining events are the college hockey games. And this weekend, Thursday night, which is tomorrow night, Army plays Bentley in the first of the college hockey games. And then on Saturday night, BC plays Providence, and BU plays UMass on a back-to-back games on Saturday night. And then next weekend, there are 2 more college hockey games, and I know Maine is participating in one of those 2 games. And then as for the other games going on around the country, number 10 Union goes to Boston University and plays them. And BU, their rink is literally down the street from Fenway Park. Yeah. So BU doesn't travel too far this weekend. But they play tomorrow night, and BU, of course, is the number 5 team in the country. And then number 2 Penn State is at Ohio State, both Friday and Saturday. And then number 15 Quinnipiac plays number 4 Harvard on Friday night. And then number 7 North Dakota plays number 18 Nebraska Omaha, both Friday and Saturday. So those are your biggest games around the country this week. Now, as for the rankings, the current rankings that were put out on January 2nd of 2017, this is the U.S. College Hockey Online ranking. Number 10, Union. Number 9, Minnesota. Number 8, BC. Number 7, North Dakota. Number 6, UMass Lowell. Number 5, Boston University. Number 4, Harvard. Number 3, Denver. Number 2, Penn State. Number 1, Minnesota Duluth. And the only note that I won't have out of here is 4, 5, 6, and 8 are all Boston area schools.
Amazing.
So a lot of college hockey there in Boston. They're all playing well.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on to the KHL Minute. And I will go ahead and get mine out of your way because I like your story better. All I had is just a couple of players that have NHL ties made some news over the past couple of weeks in the KHL. And the goaltender of the week for Week 17, that was actually not this past week, but the week before, was Ben Scrivens. You Toronto Maple Leafs fans would know that name. He's now playing for Dynamo Minsk, and he had 3 wins, all on the road, and had 2 shutouts that week, and allowed just a single goal in the 3 games that he played. And he recorded a save percentage of .989 that week with a goals against average of .33. Ridiculous numbers. But Ben Scrivens, formerly of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he played for a couple other teams too, I can't remember, is now playing in the KHL and is doing quite well from what I see. Another former NHL player, Matt Gilroy, who also played for BU, was a Hobey Baker Award winner, I believe his senior year, is number 2 among defensemen in scoring this season with 36 points in 44 games. He has 225 NHL games under his belt with the Rangers, Lightning, Senators, and Panthers, and has 48 points in his NHL career. And he spent the last 3 seasons in the KHL and is having a great season over there playing in Russia.
I wondered what happened to him, so I was real glad to read this information because he played for us. Then he was traded to Tampa Bay. I knew he went a stint, I think, with Ottawa, and then I never heard of him again, and I didn't know what happened to him. And obviously, he's been overseas in Russia playing in the KHL, which is good to know because he was a good player.
Yeah, and his career kind of fizzled out here in the NHL. His numbers were going down and down and down, and then he finally just went and probably couldn't get a contract here, and then KHL said, well, we'll take you. Yeah. And he's number 2 in scoring among defensemen, so
that's amazing.
Having a great season.
Yeah.
All right, you have a good one.
Well, the one that I have, unfortunately, doesn't have an NHL player that we all follow, but it's a very interesting story, and I wanted to get your take on this too at the end here regarding the shootout. But mine is in regards to Andrei Karayev thwarting Salavat Ulayev, which we haven't talked a lot about Salavat Ulayev. I'm not sure where their playoff standings are, but We've talked before about Neftek Nizhny, which is Andrei Karayev's team.
Boy, that's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful. You can say that 3 times, you get a box of bubble gum.
I can't even say it once.
Andrei Karayev, goalie for Neftek Nizhny. I'm going to say that again.
Gesundheit.
Goalie for Neftek Nizhny. Produced an heroic performance between the pipes for Neftek, making 61 saves in the game before denying Slavat Yulayev in the shutout to help his team to a 1-0 victory. Excuse me, it was a shootout. It was a shutout as well, but they won in a shootout. Karayev was scored on twice in the shootout, but his Neftek teammates Igor Bartolov and Sergei Konkov succeeded in scoring twice, 2 times each as well, which allowed them to win in the shootout, and seal the victory for Nizhny. So that brings up my point. I guess in the KHL, the players can shoot more than once, and I don't know if there's rules as to how many have to take a shot before a guy comes back on the ice to shoot the second time. But obviously, they didn't go through their whole roster there. Those guys, or they would have reported it.
Sounds like they're playing international rules, which I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe you name your 3 or 5, depending on whether you use a 3 or 5 man shootout. You have your initial group that goes, and those are all different players. But once you get into the extra innings or whatever you want to call it, where it's sudden death shootout, then you can use the same player over and over and over and over again, which is how the international rules read. And it looks like the KHL is using that same thing. I wouldn't mind seeing that in the NHL.
Same here. I think that would be really exciting.
I mean, if you're going to have a shootout, you might as well do it with the biggest stars of the game. I don't like defensemen going in and taking shots because they just go in and shoot. They don't try to deke. They don't try to do anything fancy.
Right. Yeah.
I'd like to see every team have a shootout specialist and just watch players with sick hands go in and do amazing things.
I agree, and it gives your team a better chance of winning them. Then your coach has to throw out the 2 or 3 defensemen in a row because all the other good players are gone. It makes it more strategic for teams. The shootouts are tough to win, anyways.
Well, and it gives a guy a job. If you got a guy who's really good at shootouts, it's job security for a guy that has good shootout moves. And
that's right.
If you're gonna have a shootout, and there's a lot of arguments on both sides whether the shootout sucks and the shootout's good, and if you're gonna have to decide a game with a shootout, let's let the best players do it and not have defensemen who are just gonna go in and take a slap shot from 10 feet out.
I agree 100%. I agree with you.
So all right, well, let's go ahead and move on to our picks of the week then. And I will go ahead and start. We've both got great stories this week, so I will go ahead and get mine done because, it's a really cool story.
I really want to hear
it. Involving our local Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes equipment manager, George Alves, one of the Carolina Hurricanes equipment managers, played goalie in a 3-1 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning on Saturday. He signed to a professional tryout contract right before the game as an emergency backup goalie when Eddie Lack got sick earlier in the day. Alves dressed behind starter Cam Ward but didn't expect to play. "It's unbelievable," the 37-year-old said. "I was actually heading back down the tunnel when I heard Coach call my name. I couldn't believe it. I think it was 7.6 seconds or something. I just looking down the ice and seeing the puck in the corner and just hoping it would stay in that corner." Before the game, Alves got choked up talking about the support he has received from his wife Amanda throughout his career, but he didn't let all of the excitement take him away from his regular job. Alves painted his own mask, which is a tribute to fellow equipment managers Skip Cunningham, Bob Gorman, and Dave Paul, and the mask was drawn by Eric Huffine, the brother of Hurricanes video coach Chris Huffine, and sharpened skates during the game, just as he would, and I think I saw a video of him taping a stick too, just as he would if he weren't wearing full goalie gear. He's a native of Boston area. Alves has worked with the Hurricanes since the 2003-2004 season. He's a U.S. Marines veteran. He played for the North Carolina State club team, and he had very limited appearances in the ECHL and the Southern Professional Hockey League as well. So a great moment for, I've watched a bunch of interviews over this week. In fact, I might even throw in a couple of the comments from some of the players and coaches about George in this podcast right at the end after we're done talking about this, right before you do your pick of the week. I'm going to throw a couple of these in there. Everybody with the Hurricanes organization say that George Alves is, an awesome, awesome guy. He works hard, one of the hardest working guys for the team, does everything he can for the players. He's a good friend to Cam Ward's, and everybody on the team and the organization, it was very excited to see him get his moment in the spotlight. And basically what had happened, typically these emergency backup goalies don't ever get into the game. But when it became apparent that Carolina was not going to win the game, the coach decided to do just something real nice for the guy, for a guy that's worked hard for the team for, he's more than 10 years now, and just decided to give him his thing in the spotlight.
That's
Great moment. I mean, it was a great thing for the coach to do. It's just, do something nice for a guy who's been, a big part of the organization for a better part of 10 years. So
that's excellent.
Great moment.
That's a great story. That really is. I didn't know how long he'd been he was in the game. Not very long though, just because it was
it was right at the end of the third period. There was an icing call right at the end of the third period. And, that's when they put him in just to give him his official NHL debut.
That's good.
Yep.
Very good. Kudos to him.
Yep. And kudos to the Hurricanes for doing that for him.
I have been to that stadium before when they've had buses come in and the equipment managers are taking the bags off the bus. It's not an easy job.
No, those guys work long, hard hours. They really do. And I joke with my wife. I say, that would be a dream job for me. But then I say, but if I had that job, you'd never see me during the season, because particularly those nights of back-to-backs. I mean, they have to pack the bus, or actually they usually have a truck, not the bus, but they pack the truck with all the gear, because they got, skate sharpener that goes with them and all the equipment, the extra sticks, the extra parts for skates and helmets and all that stuff. All has to be packed. Jerseys, you name it. Get it on the truck, get it to the plane, load it on the plane. Get to the next city, unload it, get it to the rink, do the laundry. I mean, you name it. Those guys work so hard, so long, and none of it is seen by the general public, and they're a huge, huge part of the organization.
That's really amazing.
So it was nice that he get that moment.
I agree.
As promised in the podcast, here is some of the interviews that took place after George Alves made his NHL debut. First up is George Alves himself talking to reporters after the game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I was saying there's a lot of great players here that actually deserves this attention and not me.
All right, now that you've had a couple of days afterwards, did you go back and watch? Has it sunk in that you played in an NHL game?
I have. Actually, every time I see it, I kind of get choked up. 7.6 seconds is going to be near and dear to me. Yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to watch the whole game yet. I've just been trying to respond to text messages and stuff. I don't want to be rude to anybody, and I've gotten a lot of text messages. So if I missed anybody, sorry. I'll get to you.
I was going to say, do you have the exact number of how many texts you had after the game?
By the end of the game, I think there was a little over 100, and yesterday I think it was up towards 200, and a lot of Facebook messages too. So a lot of love from a lot of people I haven't heard from in a long time. It got me really choked up to read a lot of the things people said.
Why has it been so emotional? Was the journey to try and get there so hard?
This is the brightest stage in our sport, and just to have the honor to do this. I mean, everybody dreams about it. Even just working out and running and stuff. I'm always thinking about it. What if it ever happened? What would I do? How would I react? And then when it actually did happen, I kind of went blank. You can't prepare for that. It was unexpected, and it was just quite a memory, quite a moment. I'm very grateful to the Hurricanes organization and Bill Peters for even thinking of me and doing that. It after years and and long hours of work, and it feels good to feel appreciated. You know, a lot of times the equipment staff and training staff, they do a lot of work off hours, and a lot of people don't see that, and to see that you're appreciated for that is
As you're putting your mask on to go out there, can you even tell us what those emotions were like, or what the feeling was like? Because we've never been there.
The first thing I thought of, well, actually the referee came over to me, and I think he said, "Hurry up and get in there." And then immediately I was like, "Okay, get over there." And then I thought to myself, usually when a goalie gets put in, they skate to the crease and do a little stretch to get ready. And I kept on thinking to myself, don't get down and stretch. It's only 7 seconds. Don't get down and stretch. You're going to look dumb. So yeah, and then I heard my name get called, and thinking all these people out here probably like, who is George Alves? And so I got a kind of a little chuckle over that. But yeah, it was amazing. I mean, this is just weird having everybody right here with me right now with all these great players around me. It doesn't make sense to me. Truly humbled. I don't know why I got blessed like this.
The same great players were tweeting out massive support for you before when they heard the news. What did that mean to you that everyone in this locker room was so on board and so happy for you?
It was great. Everybody jokes around for years. They've been joking around about it, and it kind of just, it was one of those things to where I was like, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, but obviously there's a lot of support, and I was really happy about that. I've gotten text messages from former players, from people back home, from people all around the league, equipment staff around the league, and it's overwhelming. It's hard to even talk about. And I look back at these messages and why me? Why was I blessed with this? And I don't know. I don't know.
On the off chance you're walking down the road and someone bumps into you and says, "Didn't you play in the NHL?" What would you tell them?
Kind of. I don't see that ever happening, really. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like, it's surreal. I was telling the guys out there, actually, I told Jordan, I said, it was only 7.6 seconds. These guys, I'm not an NHLer. So, because they weren't holding up on the shots today. So, but, it's a great feeling.
There's been a request for number 40 Alves jerseys in the off. I'm not kidding. There's been a request for that. Is that just even more surreal to you?
Yeah. I don't know why they would want it. To be honest with you, I know I want it. I'm gonna cherish that jersey, and I'll have it up in my house and be able to look at that and remember it. And but yeah, I have no idea why anybody would want one.
I imagine this was always the dream for you. At what age did you think to yourself, my life goal to play in the NHL? And how many years has it been now since you were able to accomplish?
Actually, I didn't start until a young age, or a late age, really. It was in middle school where I started playing, and yeah, it was always one of those things growing up in Boston. Hockey is big there, and I always jumped about it. I always thought about it. I said that would be great. That would be great to wear the crest. And for it to actually happen, it was just, it was one thing to be able to skate with the guys all the time and look down and say, hey, this is great. And thinking about the guys that I played ball hockey with back in Stoughton and high school hockey. See, I can't even talk about it. So I'd like to share the moment with everybody that I ever played with. I mean, I can't even talk. I mean, it's kind of weird. Sorry. Yeah, I got a lot of love, a lot of love from the goalie union, from all around. It's an honor. It's an honor.
What was the day like for you, and what went on as they told you that you were going to play? And can you kind of take us through the events of the day?
Well, actually, I got a phone call which I missed, as a matter of fact, from Ricky Olczyk, and I called him back, and he said, hold on. And I heard him in the background say, we're looking for an emergency backup goalie. And then he came back and said, hey, George, we're looking for a goalie, and it might be you. I'm trying to weed out the details here, and just be ready. And I was like, okay. But it hadn't sunk in, really, because, so many times things have happened, and it's like, oh, it could be today, or whatever, and it never happened. So, I just kind of took it in stride and said, okay, well, we'll see. I have my gear. I'm ready to go. So, And then it kind of started sinking in once I got to the rink, and everybody was like, yeah, it's going to happen. Brian Tatum gave me a call, and he was like, I'm sending over the contract, and just have a witness there when you sign it. And the great thing about it is I got to keep the pen. It was, and then at that point I knew it was real. And I said, this is actually going to happen. I looked over, and Bob Gorman was fixing up my jersey, and I had no idea he had my nameplate ready. Which was special for the equipment staff to do that. So, So as soon as the nameplate went on the jersey, and I was like, okay, I'm going. It's signed. I'm going. So, and then after that, during the game, I just remember thinking to myself in the third period, like, this is almost over. The minutes are ticking away. This is almost over, and then all of a sudden, George, get your stuff on. And immediately it was just like, what? And, and Cam, I remember Bobby went running down the hall to get my mask, and Cam just looked at me and he said, George, get on the ice and wait for your mask there. I was like, oh, okay. Like, it wasn't registering. I was like, oh, okay. And then at that point I was like, I don't want to delay a game. Referee came over and he's like, go ahead and get in net. And I was like, okay. So it was great. It was great. I didn't want to change that. I didn't want our players to be distracted in any way. I didn't want anything to change. So for me, it was it's time to sharpen the skate and let me go. Whether I had gear or not, I was going to do it. So I don't know. It's amazing to hear everybody talking about that, because to me, I was like, it's not that big of a deal. That's my job. Like, why wouldn't I do that? But I don't know.
Next, we have Jeff Skinner giving us his thoughts.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think, obviously for us, I think we see him every day, all the work he does, and then on top of all the work he does, he gets in there every day without complaining and takes shots from us, and it's a pretty selfless thing for him to do, and I think to see him sort of enjoy that moment was pretty cool for us, and something we'll be able to remember that we were part of it for him.
You said that in the pregame, you guys didn't hold back in warm-ups. You were testing him glove high and maybe buzzing the tower. Was that to make sure he was good to go more so for you?
Yeah, he likes to give a little net on the glove side and then take it away with a big glove saves. But no, he's got some good reflexes in there. He gets out and challenges the puck. So it's always fun when he gets in there to have a little fun.
You just had the longest interview of the year in here.
He did, yeah. He's a popular guy now, I think.
Nobody could get to the locker room.
Yeah, I know. He's a veteran now. I guess he's gonna have more games than some of the rookies. That you'll have to let the rookies know next time they come up. Georgie's got more games.
Everybody's always talking about what he did on the ice that game. What does he mean to you guys off the ice in the locker room in his everyday job?
Yeah, he's huge. I think him, along with Bobby, Skippy, Davey, the whole equipment staff, they put in long hours, a lot of work that sort of goes unnoticed by not by guys in the room, but by other people, I think. And for him to do that and put on the pads, pretty much seems like every day now. But yeah, they're huge. I think it's. The team doesn't sort of run smoothly without sort of quality people like that, and yeah, it's nice for him to sort of enjoy that moment.
You not only let him lead the team out, but left him out there for a while.
Yeah, I think that was Wardo's idea. I think it's that's always Wardo's idea. It's he's undercover playing pranks on guys. So, but yeah, that's funny.
George was looking around like, where is it?
Yeah, he get his own sort of time to himself out there. It's funny.
And finally, fellow goalie union member and friend Cam Ward gives us his take.
Yeah, it was a real neat moment for sure. Happy to be a part of it. I think we were literally watching a guy's dream come true right before our eyes, and seeing how emotional he got before the game made everybody emotional. And I said to him right before the game, they don't ask how or why, but you made it to the NHL. That's something that that memory he'll cherish for the rest of his life, and it turned out to be a great story for a great guy. He's a guy that really cares about the players and tries to take care of us, and he does an awesome job of doing that.
Normally, the starting goalie leads the guys onto the ice. So, when was it discussed to let Georgie get his turn on the ice pre-game ball by himself?
Yeah, it was just prior of us going out on it, honestly. Part of the perks of being a starting goaltender is you get to lead your team out there on the ice. And if this was his one opportunity to do that, I wanted to make sure that he was able to feel that moment, to be able to lead the team out. And also, kudos to Bill Peters for putting him out in the net. That was a classy gesture to do, and I'm glad it all worked out. It certainly would have been nice to be all in a happier mood with a win, but it's moments like that you kind of realize, it puts things into perspective. You realize how special it is to be playing in the NHL and, to be a select few, because there's a lot of other guys that wish that they could be in our boots.
Tammy once said that he kind of reminded you of Rudy.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like that.
Yeah, I jokingly call him Rudy just based off the movie. He's exactly that kind of character. A guy that's on the smaller side, but it works his butt off and has a really big heart. We started a little bit of the Rudy chant for him, in all good fun. It was fun to watch.
Bill said if he needed to make a save, he would have made a save.
I don't doubt it. If you watch him in practice, I'm sure he beat me on the 3-on-3 game. So he's got some good skills, and he's got a good glove hand. The boys will tell you.
All right. Well, you have a good one too.
Mine. I got watching the NBC broadcast of the Winter Classic this week, and it got me to do some more digging on things. But mine is in regards to Alex Pietrangelo, defenseman and captain of the St. Louis Blues. Alex Pietrangelo, along with the support of some of his teammates, was able to raise a good deal of money, and the amount was undisclosed, but they did report it on the NBC Game of the Week, Winter Classic. Was able to raise a good deal of money using this year's Winter Classic as his backdrop to raise people's awareness and support to the St. Louis Children's Hospital. He's a big supporter, visits there regularly. Pietrangelo is a regular visitor to the hospital to visit sick children, most with cancer. He is no stranger to dealing with cancer, as his niece, and you may remember this a few years ago, he actually shaved his head for his niece, Ellie.
Yep.
Was diagnosed with cancer when she was 5 years old and went through extensive chemotherapy and surgery. She survived. Another young Blues fans who we learned about during the game in the story between periods, who became a very close friend of Alex's, Seth Lang, who Pietrangelo got to know on an in-depth level, wasn't as lucky. He died of lymphoblastic leukemia in 2014. As a result of these experiences and others, there are always 4 rubber bands on Pietrangelo's wrist, even during games.
Oh, okay.
A light blue one for Ellie, his niece, a blue and yellow one for Seth, a dark blue one for Liam, the 2-year-old heart transplant recipient he met at the hospital earlier this year, and an orange one for teammate Jaden Schwartz's sister, who died of leukemia in 2011. Pietrangelo has spoken more publicly about cancer awareness to further the cause, made more appearances and visits at the hospital, even though it takes time for him to channel the tragedy he has to deal with in supporting the victims and their families of cancer. When you're in the moment, you try to make the best of it, he says. The biggest impact it's had on me is you really start to appreciate what you have. I'm healthy. My family is healthy. All of us. There are a lot of people at any age who aren't so lucky. It's given me a whole different mindset of life. I wake up, I think I'm happier than I've ever been. It might sound silly, but you can ask my fiance. I'm in a good mood and I'm happy. I've seen the other side, and I've seen what a lot of people are going through. Wow. And I think it's amazing what he's done and what he continues to do. You can catch some of that if you go on YouTube and just type in Alex Petrangelo hospital visit. It'll pull up about a 1.5-minute segment, and I believe it's on Seth Lang.
Okay.
Who he would go to the hospital and play video games with. But there's a lot of things. If you pull up Winter Classic, it will pull up information on what Alex Petrangelo actually does in the city of St. Louis. And I'm so glad they picked him as captain.
Well, good.
Good man.
Yeah, I think that is incredibly awesome that he keeps those reminders on his wrist in particular. Particularly, when you're playing, some of these guys are so finicky about everything that they have with their equipment, and to see him be able to wear these and still continue to play at a high level in support of those folks is quite amazing. It just goes back to the whole thing where hockey players in general are very, most of them anyway, are very, very much giving of their time and for causes that they feel are important, and just another great example of a hockey player giving back to the community for sure.
There you go.
Okay, well, I think we're just about done.
I think we got through it all. And there was a lot of stuff to get through, Wayne, but we did it.
There was. A lot of stuff has happened over the past week. So
yes, sir.
And next week looks to be just as busy.
It's going to be
We got more. We got our next week. We're going to be wrapping up all of our coverage with the World Junior Championships, and of course, if I take a glance up right now, I don't know. Do you want to know the score?
I think it's probably 0-0, no? Sweden?
No, they're just about finishing the first. There's only been a minute or so left in the first period, and it's 2-1 Sweden right now.
Wow.
Yep.
My gosh.
I didn't see the goals either. I happened to look up and I'm like, oh wow, it's 2-1. But from what I have seen though, the game is very, very intense. So
yeah.
The referee had to separate the two centers right at the opening face-off. So yeah, very much intense game. So I'm gonna enjoy the rest of the game tonight.
There you go.
Once we get done. So. All right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and wrap it up then. Like I said, I'd like to remind everybody to hit us up on our email at feedback@thehockeynuts.com. If you want to put your 2 cents in, you can drop us a voicemail at 919-960-1718. And you can tweet me. I'm at Wayne Halley 9, and you can tweet Steve at SBall504man. And, of course, you can watch us live, record the show on YouTube each week. And we're certainly welcome to have listeners or watchers of the thing. Of course, you see the unedited, and breaks and coughs and everything else when you watch the YouTube feed. But at the end of the show, I do my editing, do my magic, and get rid of all the ugly stuff, and the podcast that you listen to ends up being much more polished with music and highlights and everything else. So that's the after scene or the behind the scenes work that is yet to be done. But you at least get to watch us record live anyway and see sort of how the sausage is made, I guess, is the best term for that. So, and Canada just tied the game. So 2-2 at the end of one. Set us up for a nice 2 periods of hockey for us to watch tonight.
There we go.
So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And until next week, we'll see you then.